Are you selfish and spoiled if you can't make it living the off-grid life, especially as a woman? What do you think? We're going to discuss that. Emerson Eggerich, in his series Love and Respect, often says, "What is the issue when the issue isn't the issue?" That's something we need to consider as we talk today about the off-grid woman on the homestead, and selfishness. I know that I'm a small channel and just starting out, and I wanted to make a response to a video that I saw. The video was entitled, "Homesteading Ruined Their Marriage." Off-grid life affects women differently than it affects men. And the video that I watched, I don't actually have a problem with the video at all. He was sharing his sadness over a couple of his friends who were divorcing. They were doing the off-grid life, and at some point to the project, the woman decided that she just couldn't take it anymore and she wanted to live on the grid. But he suggested that the reason why she left the man is because he wanted to pursue the off-grid life and she couldn't take it anymore. She was abandoning their dream. Of course, it's always sad when somebody splits up, but I had so many thoughts going through my head as I listened to him. I was very interested in hearing what he had to say, not airing people's dirty laundry, because he didn't do that. He was very discreet in what he did. But having lived off-grid for 5 years now, I just kept thinking, well, maybe she was on board with it, and maybe it got hard. Maybe she just wanted to have a shower. Maybe, I don't know. But it wasn't the video that so much was causing thoughts going through my mind. It was the reaction of the comments that I was reading, because so many people were saying, she's just selfish, she's just spoiled, she shouldn't abandon their dream. But he was also talking about a lot of couples that he knew that were splitting up because the woman, often the woman, couldn't handle the off-grid life anymore, and that they just kind of changed their mind. They wanted to have a dishwasher, they wanted to have running water, they wanted to have lights that turned on, and I was like, you know, if you put it in one way, it sounds kind of like the woman is just spoiled and selfish, but if you live month after month and year after year, and you are shouldering the burden of everything plus off-gridding, sometimes it gets to be a lot. And it's not that you are abandoning your dream. For one thing, some women are going to try to accommodate to make their husband happy and to do whatever it takes to make it work. And so they will go beyond, they will stretch themselves beyond maybe what they thought they could, and they end up doing it. And it's hard to know what you're going to do in a situation until you're in that situation. And I can say that for sure. When we signed up for the off-grid life, we jumped in, both feet, and we didn't have our water system set up. We had to do that kind of all at once. We didn't have a well, so we were doing water catchment. We didn't actually have a house. We had our camper, and so we had all of our belongings in storage. And so there's a certain aspect of that. But there are just a lot of things in life that you go through that are hard anyway. Like, let's just break it down. Homesteading all by itself is one thing. Like, if you're setting up a homestead, if you're building a house, if you're breaking with homesteading, that is hard enough. And that is like a full-time job. So, because let's just say building a house, there are thousands of decisions that you have to make all the time. Every time you're turning around, you're running to the store, and you know, a bucket of nails is $150, and screws is $100, and this tool and that tool, not to mention the lumber, not to mention all this other stuff. So there's the financial aspect of it that's already a stressor. And if you're doing it yourself, that is a learning curve. And so so that's a mental load that you maybe didn't have before. Well, that's only one aspect of your life. And I don't know about everyone who homesteads. I can only share our personal experience. And this is not a video about me dumping about anything. We have learned so much on our homesteading journey, but I will say it has been hard. I'm trying to share for two things. For women who are maybe starting out and wondering about it, or I should say more than two, women who are knee-deep in mud and muck and projects, and you're right, this may not be, it may be more than you signed up for. And does that mean you throw in the towel? No, not necessarily. It may mean that you make adjustments. And so you have to sit down and talk as a family. Anytime that you feel like it's my way or the highway, and I don't know how these people are portraying it. If this woman felt like it was the only way was to leave, then that's a difficult position to be in. And from what this gentleman who is a homesteader and who was building their homestead, what he was suggesting was that the woman decided that she didn't want to be part of the dream anymore, and so she left. And I'm just saying, there may be other reasons. There may, she may have been just exhausted. Sometimes you get burnt out. And is that a reason to leave your marriage? No. But it's also not a reason to say, if you're not going to be on board with this off-grid life, then you might as well not be here. So I can't speculate on that. All I can say is homesteading is hard. Homesteading is so many things all wrapped up in one ball of wax. So like for us, and I can just relate for us, we were building a homestead from scratch, cutting everything from raw land, building a house from the ground up, trying to do it without debt, learning everything as we went, and living in our camper. So there were just a lot of aspects of it that made life a challenge. And so, okay, for my husband, his day-to-day life didn't change a lot in the fact that he would be working his regular job in town, and he'd be gone all day. And so the building process we were doing, we had somebody who was helping us at first, and then later on it became just the boys and whoever we sometimes could get to help. And so I'm not minimizing my husband's journey. It's been a stressor for all of us. I'm just saying his day-to-day life was practically the same. So he would go to work and come home, and yes, it's cramped in a camper, and yes, it's challenging being off-grid and using flashlights and not having continuous power, but I don't feel like that is the biggest part that's a challenge with being off-grid. We lived for, I would say, 3-4 years without having consistent lights and stuff. We used a generator when we wanted the lights, and we had flashlights, and we had work lights, and we had power chargers for our phones. That aspect was different, but it wasn't anything to set you over the edge. What was challenging for me was all the steps that it took to do simple tasks. And my biggest example is taking a shower. That is something that when you're stressed, it is so nice to be able to take a hot shower, decompress, get away for a minute. And for the first, I think, 2.5 years, we did bucket baths. We heated the water on the stove. We pumped the water we did rainwater catchment. And that in of itself is not so bad. Yes, it was several steps, the rainwater catchment. I really had no complaints about that. But where it got to be sometimes hard was when you'd come home and it would be cold, and you had to pump the water into the RV so you had to drag the pump out, pump the water into the RV. And for the longest time, we just didn't, there were a few things we didn't know. And so we didn't have our hot water heater in the RV hooked up at least 2 years. And so we heat the water on the stove, pour it over you to take a shower, and so it was very minimal water, and so you never got the experience of a shower. And I know, okay, you guys can say it, and that's okay, I can live with it. You can say I'm a diva, but that was so important to me. It was so important to sometimes be able to just get a good shower, because we were knee deep in mud and gravel. We would gravel the driveway, and pretty soon it would, you know, swallow up the gravel, and we would have ruts. And so everything was a mess because, you know, we're building and we're construction zone, and just, you know, it wasn't a perfect journey. So the shower, when you have so many steps when you get home just to take a shower, sometimes it was hard. And, you know, then we heated with wood, and we still do heat with wood, and I don't have a problem with that, but, you know, that becomes one more thing. It sounds like I'm complaining, and I guess maybe I am. I'm just telling you that there's a lot involved with homesteading, especially setting up your homestead. And the lady may not be a diva, it just may be that there's a lot on her shoulders that everybody doesn't have to deal with. And I will say, raising kids, homeschooling in our case, raising a garden, canning, each one of those things, if you were doing it in a normal circumstance, is a full-time job. Gardening, that can be full-time, you know, a lot of work. You put in a big garden, you've got to weed it, you've got to, you know, harvest it and can it, and to be on top of it, there's a lot of work involved. Well, the canning season is a lot of work too. And, well, homeschooling takes a lot of your time and energy and mental endeavors to sit with your kids and learn their learning styles, get the curriculum, do it with them. You don't just plop it in front of them and they learn. You have to, you're teaching them, and we had one who I would literally have to sit beside almost all the time because he would lose focus. His learning style was not the same as our other ones, and so he needed a lot of attention. And so you're building, you're helping your kids learn, plus the garden, plus canning, plus you know, there's a lot of ins and outs. That's not talking about regular life. That's all the normal things, plus the, you know, plus the homestead. So I'm just saying, as a woman's standpoint, there's a lot on our shoulders that may contribute to burnout. And burnout, especially on the homestead, is very real. I can very much relate to a person who finally says, you know what, I need to be in a place where I can just live. Living and having a marriage takes time. It takes effort, and it takes a commitment. And I don't believe that it's only the wife's responsibility to be on board with something. You know, if it's a dream like that me and my husband have, to build this wonderful off-grid property, I hope that we've talked about it. I hope that we talk about it often. We've had to come many times along this journey so far, and we're not done. we've had to reevaluate and say, listen, we thought this was going to work, but it's not working. We have to do something different. It may be for our mental sanity. It may be for just doing what it takes. And so I have 5 years looking back, and it's actually a little bit more than that because we've lived on the property for 5 years, but we were building before that. I will say that a woman may not be spoiled. She may not be a diva. She may just need understanding. She may need you to understand how she works and the things that she needs, because my husband has desired to make it work for all of us. It's put all of us at the breaking point for different reasons. Many times, several times, all along the way. As a woman, there are things that you will go through that women in your circle may never understand, and you may never be able to tell them, because whatever you say, it's going to sound like complaining, and they're going to be like, well, you don't have to do that. You could just come back to normal life. You could just live like us. And that's true. But you do try to make it work. You try to make things happen, and you want to make it happen. And I know that there have been many, many times that I truly want to embrace this lifestyle, but there has been so much on my plate that I don't feel like I can take one more thing. And my husband has felt the same way, just in different ways. So men they have a lot riding on their shoulders. They have the money making usually. And I didn't even mention the fact that if the woman is working outside of the home, and I did that for three and a half years of this last 5 years. And I will say that we finally said, listen, this isn't helping us, because when I'm gone, and I'd be gone like 12, my shift was 12 hours. And so if I was doing that a couple days a week, well, okay, so I'm gone at least 13 and a half hours by the time the commute, and that would be exactly if I left exactly and came home and did nothing else. But more often it was more like gone 14 hours and a couple days in a row. Well, then nobody is really home keeping up with the dishes. And yes, I could technically come home, wash a sink load of dishes, but honestly, I was exhausted. And when I come home and I see all this stuff, plus have no shower, plus have no place to do laundry, sometimes I would be in tears, and I would be like, I'm not handling this well. And we finally decided that, me being home, even though our kids are getting older, is still more valuable than the money. The paycheck was very helpful, but the peace of mind, having somebody to keep up with things, keeping up with overseeing building and getting construction supplies and all these things was more important at some point than the money I was bringing in. And I'm a nurse, and if your wife is talking to you, if she's having a conversation and she's saying, I'm not doing very well, please listen to her. There may be some simple things that you could do that would make life a little bit easier. I'm so glad when we got our well, that made things a lot easier. I hope that what I'm saying is making some sense. I'm really not trying to do a rant, and I'm not trying to dump on anybody. The man's video that I watched, I do feel like he really had a concern about the friends that he was mentioning. Oh, there's a rainbow. I'm driving and I saw the most beautiful rainbow. I don't know if you can see it. It's one of the things that makes life worth it. Hold on, I'm turning this around. So I had already pulled over. Okay. One thing that I think that we can do, all of us, as we are thinking about living the off-grid dream, the dream needs to be the marriage. The dream needs to be the family. And sometimes we can make homesteading, the off-grid life, whatever it is, homeschooling, there's a lot of things that we can just make an idol. We can be like, we are going to grit our teeth and we are going to do this no matter what. And what it seemed to be that he was saying is, we are going to do this no matter what, even if it costs us our marriage. No, that's not how we need to do it. If it's going to cost you your marriage and you are like, well, but I live my off-grid dream, is it worth it? Is it? I mean, I guess you have to decide that, but for me, if it was costing the health of somebody, if it was costing even the emotional health, or if you're like, this is tearing our marriage apart, but I'm not willing to give it up because it is my dream, then I think that we need to reevaluate what our dreams are and why we're trying to pursue that to the exclusion of everything else. That's my small 2 cents worth, but wow.